Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Now that I know about the palpably unfair act, I think the refs should have enacted that when the Rams kept sacking Sam Darnold.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I'm feeling a lot this morning. All of it is palpable.
What's going on? Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. 87 days until the NFL draft. Let's dive back into another prospect of the day for the Vikes on today's episode.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next-level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
What is up? Welcome in on a Monday. It's a new week. It's the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, of the week. For your second one, check out Locked On Vikings with Luke Braun. Great daily Vikings content over on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, where you can also find the audio of this show. You met the Lukes. You met myself, Sam Ekstrom. Arif Hassan is at the Shrine Bowl. We'll get a full report on that from him when he joins us a little later in the week. But on today's show, are the Vikings close to the level of these championship teams that were in the games yesterday? We'll dive into that, plus free agent guard prospects and Luke Inman's draft prospect of the day, all on today's Monday episode. Plenty of championship round talk, and we'll tell you who won the Parlay contest yesterday. It came down to literally one solitary yard. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm looking at the teams that ended up within a game of the Super Bowl. The Commanders, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles. And I'm thinking of the teams that were close to reaching that round. The Lions, the Ravens. And when I think of those six, those half dozen elites in the NFL, I don't know about you guys, I feel more discouraged about where the Vikings stand. And I think there's still a sour taste, right? Like the final two games of the season totally changed the reality of what we thought the Vikings were. It's a 2-game sample size league where every 2 games can get people fired, 2 games can change narratives, 2 games can get people benched, and the final 2 games were so bad for the Vikings. Maybe that's being a little too influential on my opinion. But I look at where those 6 teams sit league-wide. They're all top 10 in scoring percentage, right? They're top 10 in yards per play. The Vikings are outside of that. They're like 13th, 12th, kind of on the edge of being a great offense. I still feel like there's some distance between the Vikings and the elites after what I saw in the divisional round and the championship round yesterday. Eagles are hanging 55. The Bills and the Chiefs are in a shootout. I mean, the levels offensively, Luke Braun, that these teams are at, I still feel like there's a gap between them and the Vikings. How do you feel about it?
So I don't think that really holds up statistically, like EPA per play wise. The Eagles and Bills in particular, like the Vikings, Eagles and Bills were sort of in a tier together all season long. They were a little more driven by defense than offense. If you're talking purely offense, then yeah, the Vikings had some inconsistencies. A lot of that was sometimes Sam Darnold would have a bad play, and it's a moot point because they're going to have a different quarterback and therefore probably a different offensive plan next year, unless Sam Darnold comes back and we want to run that back, different conversation. But I do think that the last 2 games are probably overrepresenting themselves in your memory. They were a contender all year. They were good enough. Absolutely, they were good enough. Then the pressure came on and they choked. So if we want to talk about what the difference is, it's experience in the playoffs. They got to get here and and play in the playoffs as a team and learn how to make a run. But you see that in the playoffs all the time. The teams that fall away in the first couple of rounds and kind of melt away harmlessly are the ones that have never been there before, like the Broncos, like this iteration of the Vikings. Very few players left over, even from the 2022 team that was there last time. And certainly there's not many people left from when they were in the NFC Championship. It's just Harrison Smith, right? And like maybe the equipment guy. Like there's
Ham.
Yeah, CJ Ham, like this is a very green team in the playoffs. And so when the lights turned bright and they choked, which I think is how you have to characterize it. I don't think you can look at week 18 in the wild card game and go, aha, that's who they really are. Because to do that, you have to like abjectly ignore 17 weeks of play. And I don't think you can do that and like expect me to take you seriously, like expect that to be a serious take, you know?
It's why the rich get richer too, though, right? It's why like Andy Reid and Mahomes are so hard to stop at this point, though, too, because they continue to win these games and just have that, log that stuff underneath their belt and put it on their resume. It is tough, but you're right. All year, the Vikes look like a contender for sure. I can't argue that. And you know, we've seen in this league too, the parity year to year, a lot can change. I mean, look at what Washington did this year. I just think if you look at the, you know, top couple teams this year, and even going back the last couple years, you know, you mentioned the Lions and Ravens, Sam. They were one game away from the Super Bowl last year. 2 years ago, Super Bowl matchup was the same. It was the Eagles and Chiefs. There's just those, you know, like handful of common denominators that all these teams seem to have. You got to have a good defense, which the Vikings did. Good trench play, which obviously that's kind of a topic already this year, this offseason, I should say, for Vikings fans. And then you got to have the quarterback and like coach combo connection. If you don't have an elite high-end quarterback, you better have an elite high-end head coach too. So I think the Vikings do check a couple of those boxes. Obviously, the jury's still out on somebody like J.J. McCarthy, but you know, after seeing what KOC has done the first 3 years and the quarterbacks he's had, especially this year under Sam Darnold, I do have a lot of confidence that J.J. McCarthy is going to be one of these quarterbacks we eventually see, not just in the playoffs, but hopefully deep in the playoffs with that kind of human element stuff that's hard to scout, right? The poise, the moxie, just that kind of it, right? That it factor.
He's been in the spotlight since he was 15.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
If you go back to what he did at Michigan and even further, like you're pointing out in high school, I'm kind of excited, low-key. Now, he still has to go out there and do it, but I will say, and again, I mean, we can go through each one of these kind of criterias or you know, different areas, I guess, like the defense and the trenches and go one by one and talk about the Vikes, but I do think they do have a pretty good core and nucleus, especially if J.J. McCarthy ends up turning out to be the guy that they thought and hoped he would be when they drafted top 10.
Brian O'Neill named to the Pro Bowl games. Breaking news.
Go.
Exclusive report. Replacing Lane Johnson, who's unable to participate in the game because of the Super Bowl. Congrats to Brian O'Neill. You didn't mention the one facet, Luke, that I think stands out too. The running game seems to be more important this year than it has in years past.
Yeah.
There's a more correlation.
Can I just say real quick? I remember 2 years. I don't know why I remember this conversation so well, Sam, but I remember 2 years ago after Chiefs Eagles, the next episode, we came on here and you asked us, like, what are the couple common denominators? And I remember one of my three were running backs don't matter. That was 2 years ago, and now I feel completely different. I really do. And it's just, I mean, you can get into all the minutiae and details of why, but like, I really do feel like not necessarily having an elite running back, but you got to have a good, consistent run game, especially once you get deep into the playoffs later in the year. If you got to go play outside, outdoor, on the road when it's cold, it feels like it's back in vogue all of a sudden after just 2 years.
Well, and let's be honest too about what these elite running teams have in common. They've got quarterbacks that you can design stuff for. Mm-hmm. So that'd be the Ravens, that'd be the Cardinals, who are really good this year, the Commanders, the Bills, Eagles, right? The Bills. They design stuff for their quarterbacks. I don't know if Kevin O'Connell is going to be giving his rookie quarterback off a knee injury designed runs. He's going to make plays off schedule. I don't think that's going to be part of this offensive scheme. Maybe I'm wrong. But Braun, do you think that like are we learning that just having an elite running back is probably more vital than we were saying in like 2020, 2021?
That probably got overblown. I think the market sort of corrected for it where, now you don't take running backs second overall like you used to. Saquon's probably the last of a dying breed there. But
you don't trade your whole draft class for Ricky Williams, perhaps? Like
it's been a while, okay, since the year Prince was singing about. Jeff George was the Vikings quarterback that year. Okay, it's been a minute. I think having a good running game is like having a reliable way to get 6 yards on first down is what it is. And I don't there's a lot of ways to be that. Like the Bengals aren't that, right? They had a decent run game, but they're Joe Burrow, spread it out, throw it 50 times a game. That's who they are. And I think the Vikings can maybe take some pages out of that playbook with a quarterback like McCarthy, who I'm not trying to make a draft comp everyone's going to get mad about, but stylistically, work the pocket, get the ball out on time. He's got a lot of the same styles of play as Joe Burrow, and you're not going to run a read option for Joe Burrow. McCarthy did run some read option at Michigan. Like that did happen. That is not unheard of, and I wouldn't be like super shocked to see it. But he's not Josh Allen, right? He's not going to, it's not like core to his game in that same way. So if you want to get your easy 6, you got to find your easy 6. But I think that the problem could be solved by improving the run game, but I do think there's other alternate solutions. But the problem was they didn't have a very reliable way to get an easy 6. It had to be go for the first down every play, and it got you into a lot of third and longs.
Yeah, that's such a good point because, that's something that I really noticed this weekend too with the Eagles and Chiefs, just like how, and the Lions too, right? Like how many times they can go on these long, sustained 14-play, 7-minute drives and just like the double-edged sword that does to the opposing team, not only wearing down the defense, but not giving your offense many opportunities. Now, all of a sudden, you had 11 or 12 drives the week before. This week, we only get 8. So it just maximizes and put those drives under the microscope. And you're totally right. Like staying ahead of the sticks. All these teams do so well, and it puts them in these third and so manageable or fourth and inches scenarios. And when you got a good running game or the threat of a good mobile quarterback, like you're talking about, Sam, and you can design things with the quarterback. Now all of a sudden it's 4th and 1 or 3rd and inches, whatever it may be, and the defense has so many things to worry about. All of a sudden, that's when you get those long, sustained drives. So, I think staying ahead of the sticks, Luke, is definitely nailed that one. That the Vikings have to be better in that area, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the running game specifically.
Yeah, well, one clear area where they can upgrade to possibly improve that running game is the interior offensive line. That's the one.
Yeah, try not own goaling yourself and starting a worse player for the second half of the season too. That'll help, and not losing your best lineman in the middle of the season.
Well, we can debate Dalton Risner here in a moment because we are going to talk about free agent guard targets, everybody's favorite offseason talker, next on the Minnesota Football Party. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. If you're a small business owner, you know your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Business is always on your mind. And when you have to hire, that's a lot of responsibility. You want a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. They make it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl, linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Dalton Risner is a free agent. Garrett Bradbury entering the final year of his deal. Coin flip, whether he's back. You can cut him easily on the cap.
You really think coin flip?
What do you
I feel
say?
Like we've said this for many, many years in a row. Surely Mason Cole replaces him this time. Like, they love him, dude.
Brett Jones Come on down.
Yeah, Brett Jones is going to replace him.
Well, that would speak, Braun, to the sentiment that maybe the Vikings don't overhaul and maybe they just have one new piece. Some people want 3. I think that they like the deal they've got Blake Brandel on. 3 years, super
they're moneyballing
friendly.
They're moneyballing, and also Brandel got exposed
in the offense where you got to block for
Darrisaw.
10 seconds. It's insane. But
Well, Brandel got that too, but Brandel got really exposed once Darrisaw went down, and we talked about obviously the loss and the ripple effect that was going to happen once Darrisaw did go down. Just having the luxury of able to keep that left tackle out on an island and letting Brandel help. Get double teams and stuff like that. But yeah, they are moneyballing this thing, and sometimes you get what you pay for, unfortunately.
Yeah, Reisner, a free agent. Let's specifically talk about guard. We can talk about center another time, but I think the prevailing wisdom would be you got to have a starting quality guard. Ed Ingram is still in your building. I don't know if he plays into that equation. I don't know.
For one more year?
One more year of Ed Ingram under contract. Yep, and he can be your 6th man. Maybe he just kind of gets demoted to the Dan Feeney role. Who do you guys like in free agency? Free agent guards, and the list is always long, and there's always about 20, 32-year-olds on the list, and you wonder if they're washed or not. Shout them out, Braun or Inman.
Well, like I said, I think we talked about this maybe a week
start
and
with
a
Trey
half
Smith,
ago.
right? He's
It
like
starts
the
with Trey Smith. For me, the problem is, though, it feels like there's such a big drop-off after Trey Smith. You get into, again, Brandon Scherf, Kevin Zeitler, these older guys that have been injured, were really good at one point. Patrick McCarry, 27 years old, ton of snaps under his belt at multiple positions, left tackle, left guard, center, right tackle. That would maybe be my next pick. But yeah, Trey Smith, and again, sometimes like Joe Thuney, sometimes you get what you pay for. I mean, he's been an absolute stud. But will they continue the pattern of moneyball in this thing? He may not even be an option for them just because he's going to be priced so high. I don't know.
Right, and it doesn't feel like Kwesi typically splashes for the number 1 target that's available because Smith, he's a plug-and-play right guard, and that's exactly what the Vikings need. Feels un-Kwesi-like. And maybe he changes his MO to address a very serious need because they have the money to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to say
KOC
something potentially
kicks down the
unpopular.
door. Yeah, maybe KOC kicks down the door and goes, dude, open up your checkbook, man. I need this guy. Come on.
I need this guy.
Come on.
I'm going to say something potentially unpopular, which is that I don't think splashing for the biggest guard on the market is ever an efficient move. I think that even with Thuney, who's played well, probably hasn't paid back the investment. And not to mention, you've got tons of like Andrew Norwells out there too, or Brandon Scherfs that just don't give you the same you were supposed to get out of him. Every year there's this guard, and it feels like 2 years. Like you can look at this free agency list and find who that guy was 2 years ago every time, and it's Brandon Scherf this time. He's back on the market. We can have him again. That's why I actually like maybe a more sensible option in Kevin Zeitler. He is 35. He's older. Did not show too many signs of slowing down last time, at least, especially in the games against the Vikings. Boy, that dude kicked the crap out. He was pushing Vikings around. Of course, he got hurt, so that's part of it as well. But if you can kind of get over those like side things, I think the bang for your buck is a lot better there. And also, I just like you can trust Kevin Zeitler to do things properly, to play it right, to not miscommunicate and get in there. I think he's plenty plug and play while still kind of sitting into the the way the Vikings want to moneyball this. But again, I also think going towards solving this problem is asking less of these guys. They had to block for 4 seconds every play, and the Rams knew that. Yeah. That's why things fell apart, and that's why things fell apart with the Lions too.
Braun, why don't you explain why you are off Reisner Island? You were not a fan of it from the beginning. The stats, and I'm asking you to just tell us why you have a different view. Because Reisner finishes 8th in pass blocking, gave up 0 sacks on the year, and you think the eye test betrays what the numbers would tell you about Reisner.
So there's a difference in the way the two guys lose. This is the point that I made when I did all the I've got an article at Wide Left about this and a couple of different Patreon videos that are free to watch. So if you want to see me show my work, you can go there. But the conclusion paragraph is the way that Reisner loses when he loses, which happens about as often. And I don't know how often that gets logged or charted as a pressure, how often it counts, but I don't care how often it counts on the stats website. When he loses, he gets walked back, and he will allow the structure of the pocket to get broken pretty easily. And he's also just like markedly worse in run blocking. So if you want to improve the run game, making that switch was directly in opposition to that, right? So this has to be worth it. And Reisner took those L's about as often. When Ingram takes the L, I think it's easier to dodge. It's a less detrimental one. It will probably get charted more often because of the rules that these have. But if you're the quarterback, a guy getting washed up past you to your outside, one little movement and you're good, is going to be an easier problem to solve than there's a guard in your lap, there's a defensive tackle right on him, and you can't make one little movement and get out of that situation. You have to bail. You have to go. So I think it's a little more a Reisner pressure hurt more than an Ingram pressure. I also think that I don't know. He took as many hideous L's and he just had better PR. So I just don't really agree with like grading or whatever it is. Yeah, Ingram's left foot is I'm pretty sure someone tripped over Reisner's foot too. They morphed into the exact same guy by the end of the year in pass pro. So we just kind of got worse at run blocking for no reason. I think we just overthought it, and I think they shot themselves in the foot by tinkering around with the offensive line, which if you want to talk about the Vikings offensive line for the last decade, how often have they screwed themselves by tinkering, by screwing around, by moving Brandon Fusco to the other side? Or kicking Mike Remmers into guard. How many times has it been like, oh, this could be an interesting idea, and they tinker with something that was working and they wreck it, and now they need a new free agent? Can we just get a guy that plays the position and leave him there, please, for the first time since like 2012?
Yeah, I mean, they use it as a last resort kind of move, which means it maybe wasn't great to begin with. I think
it was plan A that one year to move Remmers to guard. It was insane to me. They started Rashad Hill all year. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Was it 2018? Yeah, after 2017, they brought in Remmers and who was it? Was that Reef?
And Reef, and they were good tackles.
And it was pretty
good.
Then
they moved him in for like the playoffs. That I get, but to do it willingly the next year, what are you doing?
Yeah, bad move. I like the Macari play there, Inman. Now I don't always know if the blocking for Baltimore translates to the blocking somewhere else, but Macari can play everywhere. Nice option, probably comes at a pretty efficient price. Tevin Jenkins is interesting. Good when he plays, oft injured, and not like the type where he's had one injury that was serious and he came back. No, he's hurt for 4 games a year, it feels like. And maybe some locker room stuff there in Chicago. So I don't know if I love Jenkins, but good player, kind of in his prime. Evan Brown, I would toss out. He was a really good fit at left guard. He can play kind of 3 different positions. Mekhi Becton thrived when they moved him to right guard. I thought
run heavy system, right, with Philly. So you don't know how that's going to translate, especially to what Luke's, obviously talking about right now too, having some of these guys block for 3-4 seconds at a time. But he kind of revived his career, man. He was a early first round pick, total bust, total flop in New York, and now all of a sudden 26 years old, still super young and playing the best ball of his career. So I'm interested to see if not only they re-sign him, but how much his market looks like.
Right.
Once you get to free agency.
I mean, tons of money ball options. If you want to go, like you find guys that have kind of had one good year and take another gamble on them. Find guys that are coming off injury. So is it Fries or Freeze from Indianapolis? He's coming off a serious tibia injury. When healthy, he was one of the best in football. That's another crazy move. Find the guy off injury, get him cheaply. Yeah. Maybe it's a bridge deal. Also to consider, the Vikings have Michael Juergens, the 7th round pick, waiting in the wings. We have no idea what he can do. I believe he was pretty good in the preseason.
Yeah, I would not expect any starting from the 7th rounder. That was he was really bad in the preseason. I think he only made the team because of the draft pick investment. You're like maybe hoping he can be backup center. I think I don't see a huge future for. I could see them expecting something like swing tackle, something from like Walter Rouse, or maybe Walter Rouse starts like week 1 or 2 if Darrisaw's not ready to go. If they really want to moneyball it, but I do think they should probably grab a veteran there too.
Oh gosh, Darisaw, you're right. He might be because he had multiple ligament tears that happened.
Same thing as Hawkinson, yeah.
Late October. I want to say
the timeline puts him like right at week 1, depending on how his rehab goes. That's a big question mark. So even if you are hopeful about his rehab, you kind of can't rely on it. So you probably should bring in some kind of veteran tackle to start for a couple of games, unless you really like what you're seeing from Walter Rouse so far, which I don't know. They didn't put him in over Quessenberry all year, so I just kind of doubt that.
Any final candidates to toss out for guard? Hey, haven't we been asking for Will Hernandez for about 8 years in a row? Will Hernandez coming off a knee injury, but he was good last year.
Will Hernandez, who they could have picked over Mike Hughes. Yeah, he's on he's gone through about as many teams.
Yeah.
Connor Williams
not
was
Lamar
the name.
Jackson. Not Lamar. Yeah. Forget about him. Forget about Lamar. We want
Lamar
Will
Jackson.
Hernandez. Yeah.
They just paid $84 million to Kirk. Why would they draft Lamar? Yeah. Teddy and a rookie. That was the way it should have been.
Inman's draft prospect of the day. I can't wait to find out who it is. That's coming up next. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. It's Super Bowl time. 13 days from now, Super Bowl 59. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. No better way to make every play more exciting than FanDuel Sportsbook. We will absolutely have some absurd parlays going out via this show. You can predict the first touchdown, MVP, coin toss. FanDuel gives you all the action, all the props, live betting all game long. Adjust your bets as the game unfolds. You can adjust the lines, the over-unders. It's the Super Bowl. Dozens, hundreds of ways to wager. Live betting feature keeps you involved. I mentioned that. The app is super easy to navigate. And right now, new customers can place a $5 bet. If you win that, you get $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. So take care of that $5 bet before Super Bowl Sunday so you have the $200 to play around with. That's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet 5, get $200 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. Arif Hassan is at the Shrine Bowl, so he's going to have some prospects as well when he comes back on the show. But Luke Inman's our other draft guru, and he's going to give us his draft prospect of the day. Let's build on what we already learned. Last Thursday, it was Benjamin Morrison, cornerback, Notre Dame. Who are you going with today?
Yeah, I think just given the topic of conversation today about the offensive line, just given what I saw with the Eagles and the Chiefs yesterday, I think we should highlight one of the better interior players of the entire class, Alabama guard Tyler Booker. First and foremost, dude's a monster, 6'5", 330 pounds. I've seen him listed closer to 340 as well. So physicality, that presence should be a welcome addition to the interior when you think about specifically what the Vikings need on the inside. Checks that box first and foremost. But second thing is, he has been, when you look at his body of work the last 3 years, maybe one of the, if not the number one most consistent guard in all of college football the past 3 years. Comes into Alabama as a freshman, plays both right guard and left guard, ends up earning all SEC freshman honors. So as a 19-year-old, I always like to think about that. As a 19-year-old, he held his own versus the SEC, some of the best competition in the country on the defensive line. Then as a sophomore, he follows that up. He moves to left guard full-time, logs 12 games, again, earns all SEC honors, 2 sacks given up, 11 hurries, 15 pressures. As a true sophomore, that's per PFF, 41 knockdown blocks or pancake blocks in just over 600 snaps. And then really last year, this 2024 season, is really when he kind of kicked things up and really started to shine. 715 snaps, 0 sacks allowed, 7 hurries, 9 pressures. Again, first team All-SEC. So in the past 2 years, the dude's only allowed 2 sacks. He's an absolute physical kind of just powerhouse, drives guys out the line of scrimmage, plays through the whistle, which you love, kind of wears down guys. That's his mindset, loves the game of football. Vikings could use one of these guys on the interior. And as good as he is, I think in the run game, I think really where you feel him the most is in pass pro, which is pretty nice in today's day and age. Thinking about J.J. McCarthy, trying to develop him. We already talked about KOC's playbook. Sometimes got these long developing plays that take 3-4 seconds. He's just so strong on the interior with that anchor. It's tough to get a good bull rush on him very often. But left guard, probably what you're going to hear him come out as. But again, a lot of reps at both spots. And I think that's just a nice bonus, I think, for the Vikings specifically, pending who they bring back this offseason. He's got that versatility, kind of be a plug-and-play guy. You look at some power rankings, some maybe mock drafts. I've seen him kind of a top 40 consensus guy. I just pulled up the Athletic NFL Draft Consensus Big Board. Right now, he's number 30. I saw Daniel Jeremiah, I think it was last week, plug him at the end of the first round. So Vikings picking at 24, kind of value-wise, it kind of matches up as of now. There's going to be a lot that changes. Guys, stock goes up, stock goes down from now until April 25th. But I think right now, sitting where we're sitting at pick 24, guard, not like a sexy pick, obviously. Typically, you don't see a lot of first-round guards go. But I think sitting at 24, I think if you bring in somebody like this for your offensive line, interior offensive line specifically, I think it would make a lot of fans happy, just finally investing more draft capital into the trenches. So Tyler Booker from Alabama, I think it just makes a lot of sense for me and my money. I think a lot of people would be happy with him.
Yep, just turning 21 in April. This is the conundrum when you don't have draft capital, is that that whatever you do in the first round, then you can't address the other needs until the third round, until like the 97th pick, the way that it's going to shake out for the Vikings. So you have to choose, right? Do you go with corner in the first round? Do you go with guard in the first round? I think guard's a really valid direction to go if you're serious about addressing the interior, like KOC sounded like. Tyler Booker projected by Kuiper 16th in his latest mock. That's going to change a bunch as the combine happens. How would it strike?
Is that his big board or is that his mock draft?
That's the mock. He's got him going to Arizona, probably to replace Will Hernandez. Braun, how does that hit you going guard in the first round?
Big Tyler Booker guy here. Yep, love it. I would if he was there at 24 and they just walk up to the podium, slam it, go home, and not think about it again, I think that's perfectly fine. The problem you pointed out, Sam, about kind of having this sort of Sophie's choice, you have so many problems, you can only fix one in the draft. I kind of think that's true anyways, unless you have multiple firsts. Like, you throw a second rounder at something, it still feels a little bit like a half measure. But the thing is, you have to walk into the draft having done, like, free agency has to solve this problem for you. You have to walk into the draft knowing that if the right guy doesn't fall to you at a given position, you're going to be okay going into free agency. You can't walk in just saying, like, all right, well, Dwight McGlothern's our starting corner unless the right corner falls to us. Like, you can't do that, right? As much as I like Dwight McGlothern as a backup, you can't just walk in, relying on the draft, especially when you made the playoffs and you draft a little later. You can't rely on it that way. So hopefully they'll go into the draft with the options. With okay, we can go guard, we can go corner, because we picked up a couple free agents. We know who's going to start next year. We don't have to have this sense of urgency, and then you can pick whoever you want at a position of need. If that ends up being Tyler Booker, I haven't watched a ton of guys yet, but he's one of my favorite that I've watched so far. That's a people mover.
Yeah, he's fun for sure. And to your point here, too, and not all teams have this luxury, obviously, especially when you get into cap hell like the Saints and things like that. But the goal, I think, as any front office should be, is to be able to go into the draft, like you said, and take the best players available, not just specifically on need. Now, clearly, every team isn't going to just take the best player available if they got three other guys starting at that position. But, you hone down your 3 or 4 biggest positions of need, I think, and then take the best guy available. That's the name of the game in the draft, I feel like. And it feels like if you look back over the last 5, 10, 15 years, some of the best front offices do that. But again, you have to have the money to be able to do that in free agency first and foremost.
He and McCarthy played at IMG together, won a title in high school. Let's go.
Chemistry.
We get it. Chemistry.
His foot will not step on J.J. McCarthy.
No.
That's
never.
the chemistry they've developed.
Never.
So we've got Benjamin Morrison and Tyler Booker nominated as our Vikings prospects to watch. I think both pretty realistic. I can't wait for Inman to start getting saucy with these. Who's going to be his Hendon Hooker this year?
Who's going to be the Puka? Who's going to be the Puka?
Oh,
that's a name you're more excited to invoke.
Yeah, probably.
Not the guy who got usurped by Teddy Bridgewater in 2 years coming off a high school coaching championship.
Well,
I'll randomly throw at you. I'll assign you 5th round prospects of the day at some point, so we can get our Pukas.
I can't wait for Senior Bowl again. Arif,
yeah, for reasons I would appreciate that. Yeah,
Arif's going to come back with some good under the radar guys, right? Some day 3 guys, which are always fun. But Senior Bowl really kicks things off, I think, for a lot of people. If you're trying to get into the draft, now there's so much coverage of the Senior Bowl, even compared to when I last went a couple years ago. But ESPN, NFL Network, all that stuff really helps kickstart, I think, a lot of people's kind of off-season and NFL draft season, and you really get an inside look on not just like these high-end first-round guys, but like the glue guys, 2nd, 3rd, 4th-round type of guys as well, and you kind of get a better understanding of maybe who you like, who you don't like, and things like that. So Senior Bowl this week, tune into that as well. That'll be great.
When we return, I will reiterate. Actually, we're not going anywhere. We've had our breaks. I'm now going to reiterate how to solve for the kerfuffle that occurred in the AFC Championship game on the 4th down. Josh Allen stopped short on a 4th down with Buffalo leading at the time by 1 in the 4th quarter. The officials didn't know where to spot the ball. Replay review was deemed inconclusive. I thought it was conclusive. I thought the Buffalo got the 1st down. I'm going to explain again my method for solving this and how I would officiate spotting of the football to, I think, make this much easier. When a 1st down is attained, up until you get to a goal-to-go situation, when you get to goal-to-go, spot the ball exactly where it is. Up until that point, 1st down, you put the ball exactly on the nearest yard line. That way, the spot to gain is always an exact yard. Now, would that not make it more easy to create some kind of laser system, some kind of digital line that can be superimposed over a replay and allow for a spot to be deemed gained or not? Like, that's what you needed yesterday. You needed something to put over the football, landmark. To put a clear landmark, to put over the ball, like freeze the picture when Josh Allen is advanced the ball furthest and say, all right, is he across the line or not? That's the solve for me. Just deal with exact yard lines and not the ambiguity of, well, the 1st down marker is like a couple inches inside the 40. Why can't we
kind of trot out the chains inexactly?
Yeah. Let's deal with actual lines on the field. And to me, I know there are challenges technologically to pull this off. That feels a lot easier to institute some kind of digital official line that can solve for this. Because I thought the Bills got hosed. I thought it was a bad call. Bad call on the field, bad spot on the field, tough to overturn. I get it. But if you take the guesswork out somehow, I think this gets you closer to doing that. I was so gutted for Buffalo because of that and the way the game ended, the drop by Knox, just gutted.
Kincaid, I think, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kincaid.
Either way.
Yep. Bad playoffs for tight ends, dropping key passes.
Oof, man.
The
tight end drop.
Dude, you can go back against the Chiefs too, Bo. You can go back actually. Was it week 1 when Isaiah Likely caught that touchdown versus the Chiefs, but his toe was just out of bounds?
An inch out. And by the way, I think if you overturn that one, this game is in Buffalo.
Oh, tight ends.
Tight ends, man.
Sam's soul just left his body right there.
More stung by that Buffalo loss, to be honest, than the Vikings losing to the Rams. Like, I felt that for Buffalo fans. They were
4 of these in a row, and 3 of them to the Chiefs is just like, oh my god.
And then they're just teasing you and toying with you the fact that they beat them, right? The Bills beat them in the regular season every time. What is Allen 4-0 versus the Chiefs in the regular season?
Yeah, you know that you can.
Yeah, we can do it.
It'll feel different next year, surely. I think as long as you have Josh Allen, you'll be in it.
Oh, yeah.
One of these years, Chiefs will blow one and lose to, like, I don't know, the Titans in the wild card or something. Like, it'll happen eventually. One of these years, it'll happen.
They have invested.
2010, Jets at Patriots. It'll happen.
Yeah, 2010. That's right. Good pull. They've invested a lot of early capital and ammo into like getting him weapons. Stephon Diggs, remember he dropped that bomb, was that 2 years ago in Buffalo? It's like, okay, he needs some more help. So they go spend a first rounder on Dalton Kincaid. Really hasn't been that great as of yet. They spent a first rounder on Keon Coleman. Not doing much so far. They got some reclamation projects in Amari Cooper and whatnot, but they've tried to get him some of these alpha or consistent weapons in the passing game, and they just haven't. Not saying that Mahomes has all these outside of Kelsey, has all these alpha prime number 1 wide receivers either, but it's been kind of disappointing. I feel like just from a development standpoint that Josh Allen doesn't have a couple more weapons despite using a lot of draft capital.
I thought Buffalo's game plan in the second half was so cool, and it was so awesome to see them run the ball like 20 times in a row.
Yeah.
Like there was a stretch there where they would either traditionally run the ball or just do a quick extension of the run game, quick screen, quick bubble screen. 20 times in a row, they were moving it, man. And that fourth down call ruined it. But I thought they had it in the bag. I thought it was at 22-21, moving the ball downfield. I thought that was going to be Buffalo's day. Super disappointed.
0 for 2 or 0 for 3 on 2-point conversions as well.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
that
0
in
for
the
2.
end
That hurts.
didn't matter, but
yeah.
Man, Washington, same thing. You look at the box score, okay, didn't matter, but game flow, things like that. At a certain point, it's like those 2-point conversions. You're riding the high of this crazy long magical touchdown run. It's like, dude, we got 35 seconds to get this play in and concentrate and punch this 2-point conversion in. That is probably going to loom huge at the end of the game.
35 off of turnovers in that game. 35.
Jeez.
If you count fourth down, not getting a fourth down as a turnover, which is probably fair.
Wow.
And they lost by 32. The difference in that game was 5 different times the Commanders gave up good field position and gave up a score.
Yeah.
Just total meltdown.
Yeah.
55 burger. And hey, a larger margin of defeat than the Vikings in the NFC Championship.
Yeah. Oh my God, I would rather get 38-7 than have hit 50 hung. Oh my God. 38-7 is a reasonably, like, that's a score that if you saw in the regular season, you'd be like, oh, okay, blowout game. Well, looks like they covered. Like, you wouldn't remark on that, but you get a 50 burger on you, people talk about it on TV the next day.
That hurts, and that's always going to hurt. But I will say, it felt like after the Vikings went down and scored that opening drive touchdown with Rudolph, after that, it felt like they were never in the game after that. Once the Eagles tied it up, granted, but like one drive, at least the Commanders fans felt like they were in it at what was the score at halftime? I mean, it felt.
Yeah,
it was going in. It was 27-10.
Yeah, okay, no, you're right. At halftime, it was like a 12-point game at halftime. You're right.
Not over,
12,
not over by any means. And even at 34-23, which leads us to the palpably unfair act. I mean, like the Commanders probably feel like, okay, down 11 with our offense, we could make something happen. And then the Eagles get to the inch-yard line. And I was working. I was announcing hockey. I missed this live. Went back and watched it. The palpably unfair act. The most interesting part of Championship Sunday, I thought, now that I know about it. Commanders jump offside 4 times in a row intentionally. And they probably would have given them a touchdown if they'd done it one more time. I've never heard that explained or enacted in the NFL. With that, now, if someone jumped off the sideline and tripped a player that was running down the field for a touchdown, is that sort of the point of the rule? Like, you could give a free touchdown.
Yeah, if there isn't already a rule about it. Like, if a team comes up with something that's not in the rule book, we didn't know that you were even going to try that, but you definitely can't do it. The ref essentially, gets the ability to manage that situation, especially when it's something like what they were doing on the goal line, where it's like, this is clearly never going to progress. Neither of these teams are going to relent. The Eagles are going to keep calling this. The Commanders are going to keep jumping, and they're going to, until someone acquiesces. At a certain point, the game is slowing down. So I think actually the refs handle that perfectly. You go to the Commanders, you say, if you keep doing that, we're just going to tell Philly that they get the score and we're going to move on. You got to do something else. You announce it to the crowd, make sure everyone knows what happened here so nothing is underhanded, everything is out in the open, and then you say, look, we got to control the flow of the game. That is the primary job of a referee, is to control the flow of a game. It's not to call penalties. It's to make sure the ball is spotted, make sure things keep going, make sure everybody's on time and doing what they're supposed to do, and the play clock is right and the game clock is right, to manage those aspects of the game. So I think it's perfect. People I get are frustrated because it's kind of funny and they want the tush push to be like punished or whatever, but I think that was a perfect invocation of that's exactly how it's supposed to go. Don't do it, just warn them, but be very loud about it, make it stop so that we can all move the heck on.
Side note, would need to see the stats. Felt like the Vikings got a lot better at the tush push / QB sneak. Not always traditional tush pushers, but they were pretty good this year.
I think they're like short yardage thing evened out. You would call it maybe that it regressed.
They were not good at running plays in short yardage, but sneaking the quarterback for like running plays to other players. I thought that Darnold getting it on his own worked decently. The parlays were fascinating yesterday. We were all tied at 0. Nobody had won. Various levels of aggression in our parlay contest. Again, the loser/losers have to front the Super Bowl bet for the group. We had one winner, 3 losers. Arif Hassan had a 5-leg parlay. He hits 4 out of 5. He loses on Travis Kelce yardage, 40+. Only had 19. So Arif,
his normal prop was like 67.5. So Arif took a huge discount, thinking like, okay, I'm gonna.
He had like 5 legs, right?
Yeah,
5 legs, and he hit 4 of them with ease. Kelce harpooned him.
Man, yeah, they were all conservative legs because it was like a plus 300 or something, but just too many.
Inman, I think he only went 1 of 3. I think he lost on Hopkins' longest catch, 13.5, and Curtis Samuel, 14.5 total yards, only had 1 catch for a touchdown. Touchdown should count for something.
Yeah.
But, it didn't.
Yeah, just Venmo me after. I mean, I don't want to make a big thing of this live, but yeah.
So Inman loses. It came down to Sam and Braun. Now, we were the 2 most conservative with our parlays. Braun, you had a 2-leg. Saquon Barkley, anytime TD. Well, that hit on the first play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then Josh Allen, 40+ rushing yards. Simple. Well, how many did he end up with Braun?
Big 3-9.
3-9.
Big 39.
And I believe if they had given him the conversion on the sneak, that would have technically been the yard you needed.
Vegas is sick, man. Vegas knows.
I don't know what it is about this show and the bets that I make on this show, but when I do things with my real money, whether they're pick'ems or actual bets, you win some, you lose some. It's normal. You get some bad beats. You get some really fun. It's fun, right? It's like
fun.
It's fun. Promise it's normal.
Yeah.
But whatever happens whatever I say on this show will not only lose, but it'll lose in the most crushing way possible.
Clip that, will you?
The juju is astounding.
The juju is so it's insane. How many coin flips in a row I can lose?
Yeah, so that leaves me. I got a pretty easy win, actually. Jalen Hurts, 150. A.J. Brown, 25. Brian Robinson was the toughest one, and he did hit that midway through the second half. I was afraid that they were just going to go all passing game, put in their passing backs, and just roll like that. But no, I got it. So
what'd you have on him? Yards, carries? What'd you have
25 yards. That's all I needed.
Okay.
25 yards. So we've got 1 winner and 3 losers. So I think one of us is not paying a dime, and the other 3 are chipping in for this Super Bowl bet that's going to make us all rich.
I can't wait to see. And Sam picks the bet because you won?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, I'll accept, feedback. I'll allow you to put forth an opinion on this.
I think I won last year, and I just defaulted to you guys. Like, whatever you guys want to do. Let's do a group think here. But I would love to see Sam's bet.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
We should talk about it the Thursday before the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
and hopefully all 4 of us will be here, and we can do that.
Obviously, we're gonna parlay Gatorade color with heads or tails with
national anthem length versus first drive. Yep. All the classics.
Any T Swift props. We're all over it. I'm scale of 1 to 10. How much you looking forward to this Super Bowl matchup? I'm about a 3.
I'm like a 6 or 7. I think it's fun. People are complaining too much because it's the same team again, and it's like, but they're good teams. This isn't like when it was the Patriots did not play an exciting brand of football when they were in the Super Bowl every year. They were methodical and they were very precise and they were very like, West Coast, and it was very like efficient, ruthless, and cold. Yeah, and it was, you respect it, right? It's an all-time great, but it wasn't like blow them up, fun and entertaining, except once they got to the Super Bowl, it was pretty much always a good game, except that one against the Rams. But I don't know. The Chiefs are always fun. Like there's always something cool going on. Whether it's, oh my God, look at Hollywood Brown having a game of his life suddenly, or Mahomes doing crazy Mahomes things. Like it's always a good time.
Yeah,
good
each
TV.
year, each team has its own kind of unique fingerprint, if you will, or own DNA. So yeah, these teams, despite it only being 2 years, I personally think I would be at like a 4 or 5, but the Saquon Barkley effect bumps it up a couple notches for me. He is so fun to watch play, especially in that Philly offense as well. So, yeah, I know it's easy to just say, it's a repeat of 2 years ago, and that Super Bowl was okay. It wasn't like legendary or anything, but this one could have the makings, at least on paper, to be a really good close game, which is really what I think everybody wants at the end of the day. Come down to the last drive. Who's got the ball last kind of sets up for some dramatic endings, I guess, if you will.
Last one was great. People don't talk about that game as an elite Super Bowl because of the way it ended.
Overtime,
it was
man.
very anticlimactic. It was the kind of a shoddy pass interference call that gave the Chiefs a chip-in field goal basically at the buzzer. But I
ruined too much of the discourse, which was a bummer because it was such a fun game.
Right, 38-35.
What's the opening line?
1.5 Chiefs.
Okay.
It should be close, and the Eagles are fun too. The Eagles are balanced. Like they've got Saquon, and they can pass on you with AJ Brown. Like it doesn't feel like if the Commanders were in this one, people would probably be happier about it for the sake of parity. But the line would be like a touchdown. Like we would be looking at a
8.5
blowout.
Yeah,
and everyone would be bored. Like I don't know. If this game gets into the fourth quarter, we'll be happy about it, even if it's the same teams as before. Don't be a baby. It's the Chiefs are good.
2 years ago too. I mean, where was that? What stadium was that? Because Eagles especially were slipping and sliding all over. Like, remember that? And this year it's in New Orleans. But remember, the Eagles went into that Super Bowl with an NFL record, most team sacks in NFL history. They had Brandon Graham, they had Josh Sweat, they had Fletcher Cox, they had all these guys, and they couldn't get after Mahomes because they kept slipping and sliding around. So that kind of ruined things a little bit, at least for their, it's one of those, hey, figure it out, put on different cleats. I don't know. I mean, both teams have the same disadvantage kind of thing. So tough to go too down the weeds or the rabbit hole with that theory. But you just want the best football, the best quality football played. And I remember that kind of putting a little bit of bad taste in people's mouths.
Yeah. Arizona or Houston? I can't remember exactly.
Arizona. I just looked it up for the Eagles Chiefs last time. So it was indoors, but yeah.
Minnesota Football Party will be back with Arif Hassan on Thursday. We'll have the Care 11 crew on our Wednesday special edition, and plenty more free agent targets, draft prospects coming at you this offseason. We'll move into the month of February. The show doesn't stop here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thanks a lot, Lukes. Thanks a lot for watching and listening, commenting, and subscribing here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find us on the Locked On Vikings audio feed, and we will talk to you next time.